Hey there, Alex here. Welcome to another episode on Sweet Spot Soul. We are going to pick up on this 144 codes that we are rebuilding on this journey, this twin flame journey, or really any type of an awakening journey that you're on. Particularly, of course, on this channel, we're looking at relationships. And so I'm going to dive into different kinds of relationships now. Finally, for the first time. So we're going to look at twin flames. We're going to look at karmic relationships. We're going to look at soulmates, soul family, and even interceptors. Okay. So I'm going to do this as it relates to DNA and the accretion that we are looking to do on this awakening journey. And then on the next couple of episodes, then I'm going to dive a little bit more into what happens as we are accreting this DNA via these different relationships, and what's going to happen in terms of our multidimensionality as that exposes, or as that grows, and how we can travel through these different dimensions as we awaken. And then on the final one, I'm going to talk a little bit more about just the overall, how this all comes together and is born into the whole journey. Again, no matter who's coming into your life as we are on this awakening and building this 144 codes. Now, I'm saying 144 codes as 12-strand DNA, which is the true twin flame journey is to accrete all 12 of those strands or more. Okay. So monadic twins have that type of coding, and they also can be 24-strand, 48-strand. That part doesn't matter. In this time-space matrix, it's 12 that we're concerned with. Now, if you're split soul, also, this is a 6-strand blending together. And again, it doesn't matter either way. You are initiated to grow and to awaken, and most likely you're the divine feminine if you're on this channel. And therefore know that whether you get to 6-strand and then you continue and you meet a higher level soulmate as you continue to accrete and awaken, great. Or maybe you meet the monadic twin after lots of awakening you've already done, great. Doesn't matter. Same journey, same end goal is to awaken in this lifetime. Okay. So, or at least to whatever level that you are made of. Okay. So let's talk about this a little bit. There was one previous video that you might want to go back to first, where I do talk about the general, like what we're putting together here, base codes and accelerator codes, masculine and feminine, that then create all of these different little codes in here, and each leg and each different strand of DNA, and that each of these different sets of strands opens a harmonic universe, another dimension for us as we move from the lower dimensions of D1, 2, and 3, dimensions 1, 2, and 3, into the soul matrix 4, 5, and 6. I've done a video on this also. You pushed out 4, 5, and 6, and then into the oversoul matrix 7, 8, and 9, and then ultimately even to bring in to jump to that avatar level of 10, 11, and 12. Each of these again has a different Merkaba we'll talk about in the next video. So what's going on with the different types of people that we're meeting? As we have this potential structure, right now we have, of course, just 1, 2 to 3 strands, 2 to 3 strands of physical DNA in our bodies. The rest of it's what's known as entron DNA, potential DNA. It's the etheric, non-physical DNA that is what opens up our multidimensionality. These other bodies that we have that are not physical. That's why it's not recognized in science necessarily that we have 12 strands or potential 12 strands. It is much more so now, but it didn't used to be. So when you look at that and you see this structure of 12 strands here, 1, 2, 3, right here, harmonic universe number 1. This is going to be the physical. And then, and so on and so on. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So as you're collecting these codes, you're collecting them from different people in your soul family. Now, everything is energy, right? We know that this is an energetic journey. I'm talking about this not to get you all in the head. I'm showing you this because we get so caught up in what's the masculine doing and what are they thinking and all of these things that are distracting because they trap us in the emotional mind and in the mental mind and doing all this like sorting out. And I want you to realize we're having an energetic conversation so you can learn to master your energy, so you can station with soul and oversoul and even avatar levels because you master the energetics of this whole thing. And so by understanding what's going on there, it can help you to stay out of the lower the lower 1, 2, and 3, and getting trapped in that area, trying to control what's happening here in the 3D, and really help you to station at a higher level of consciousness, which is going to move you up this scale of frequencies, again, unlocking more and more of the DNA. Now, energy seeks to balance itself. We are energetic beings. We are made up of masculine and feminine energies, and they're wonky. They're really wonky because of the belief systems and the traumas and the ancestral traumas and all of the things that have created distortion. And so we have our own DNA song, okay? And I talk about this actually on my other channel. Make sure you are subscribed to that other channel because I just did 2 videos there, much more basic for awakening, but all relevant to this. So check in the description box and make sure you go over there. I'm wearing the same thing. I'm doing 2 parts over there too. And that's the one that you can send to your friends that think you're crazy when it comes to the twin flame journey. So that can at least give them some foundation. But again, we are energetic beings and we have a song, okay? We have a DNA, you literally hear it as a song, okay? There's different octaves that we have. And so each of these different little codes has a ring to it. It has a structure to it or a potential structure to it. And so when you meet a matching song or resonance, then again, energy seeks to balance itself. If you have you're the feminine, then you have a negative charge, then you're seeking the positive charge of the masculine in order to harmonize with that. Now, the problem is that distortion also has frequency. The shadow has frequency that are stored in the body in the different etheric levels, of course, from ancestors and karma and so on. And all of this has energy that also is seeking to balance itself. Okay, so knowing that in the background here, this is all an energetic dance. We say, oh, you don't have to heal, right, quote unquote, but you do in a sense because all of that distorted energy that's seeking to balance itself is in the way of allowing these harmonic, these resonant frequencies of the masculine and feminine that are sharing all the same codes, only one in the positive charge and one in the negative. If there's any shadow energies in there, they get in the way. That's what creates the separation. That's what creates the dance. So keep that in mind that you do actually need to work through that shadow and you do need to work through the energetics of karma, right? Which is just cause and effect. Energy is coming back in order to be corrected from, again, past lives, this life, and so on. And these are shared with your twin. So let's get into the main meat of this particular talk. I just had to give that foundation. It's really important that you understand we are talking about energy because this is an energetic dance and awakening that's happening that you were kicked onto. And again, the last video in the series, I'll give an overview of how this all comes together, okay? But I wanted to make sure these foundations were here so that wouldn't be 2 hours long. Okay, which I could easily do. Okay, so let's talk first about the twin, then we'll talk about the soulmate, soul family, karmics, and interceptors. So again, think 12-strand DNA is the goal here. 12 strands, you're looking to accrete both the accelerator codes and the base codes in order to get all of those different harmonics on each strand accreted in order to move to unlock this multidimensionality and remember your wholeness as a soul, as an avatar, potentially as an ascended master coming into the physical form, okay? The twin, if you are a primary twin, then you share almost all of the codes in the positive and the negative in this 12-strand DNA. And that's what gets activated when you first meet. Almost all of them or all of them, okay? Depending on the level of twin, many more twins are meeting that have almost all of them, not all of them, right? Some are 6-strand DNA, so they have part of it, but then they might move on to meet more. But the goal here is that this DNA has been activated by the twin, and all of the distortion that got kicked out is also been activated to be healed out, healed. Okay, so let's say you met a 6-strand twin, right? A split soul. You still have another, set of codes to get, and this is where your soulmates might have come in. Soulmates have partial. Let's say they have maybe some of the harmonics of. So let's just say a soulmate will have a lot of the harmonics of the same but opposite codes so that you can share those codes together. So you have a harmony. There's a lot of harmony in soulmate relationships. But they may also have karma. They may also have shadow that is resonant with your shadow too. So that's why you can have a soulmate with karmic lessons. And that's perfectly great because you are trying to accrete the DNA and get rid of the shadow. You're on that journey. You may have started this a long time ago. In fact, I had two soulmate karmics that were massive in my life, right? And learned so much and was on a growth path because of them. And then I also had two false twins, I believe, one really early on and one later on, that were not actual relationships, that also kicked up and shared codes. And then I met my twin who had like the match, the full match. And that's where the lock-in happened. So when you meet a twin, if they are sharing that much, you're definitely going to get the shared field. Once they click together and get kicked on, that starts the awakening journey, particularly for the feminine first. When that gets clicked in and that polarization happens, the individuation has to happen separately because it's too intense and it won't allow, they polarize and it won't allow in the shared energetic field. A soulmate, you don't have a shared energetic field necessarily that you're locked into, but you have a lot of shared codes that will be in harmony again, and you'll have potentially also shadow that's disharmonic. But even if it's totally harmonic, you might pick up a number of those codes, but then there's still something within you that knows that there's more to grow. So if you're not growing in that relationship, you're going to feel the stagnancy, the boredom, whatever, because your energy is still wanting to continue to balance and accrete more. And that's what happens when you have a stronger spiritual will and that Kundalini is naturally rising or was kicked up and it's looking to complete this whole journey by accreting the DNA. So that's where the soulmates come in. And they're beautiful and they're awesome to have. And a high level soulmate is just another person who's harmonized, that harmonizes with your own song, okay, your DNA song, your personal resonance also would match to bring them in. You're in the same field of consciousness, whereas with a twin, you might still be a little bit separated. Okay, soul family, same thing as with soulmates, only the soul family tends to come in a little bit later when you're getting more towards purpose and working with people that are resonant, that you're called to serve. And that purpose unlocks as you go into 4, 5, and 6, into the soul line. Before you get to the oversoul, that purpose really kicks up. And this is when you're stepping into that authentic expression, into your divine feminine nature, if you're divine feminine or masculine nature, and you start working with the people that are resonant with you. And that's really where you can pick up and share codes with the people you work with. And this is what happens in my work. I'm working with my clients and I'm feeling this rising frequencies coming through to my clients. And then of course we're clearing things together. And I'm also gaining from working with you. So it's this beautiful mutual dance of sharing codes together and helping you to awaken and helping me also to awaken. Because as we go higher up the scale, we are re-up-stepping we've down-stepped into many versions of us. It's almost like we're collecting each other and stepping back up together and healing as a group, as a collective, and all rising up together. So this awakening journey is multifaceted, and that's where soul family is really a beautiful thing. I hope you're following with this. Now, karmic is where you're really, your shadow is attracting shadow. So again, energy seeks to balance itself. So if your shadow is prominent in your life and your own frequency is doled out by the dramas and the distortion because you're maybe lower down on the scale here, lots of attraction and aversion, lots of running and chasing and all these things going on, you might attract, I'm not saying that this is the twin journey. Let me clarify that. There's a lot of relationships that are just traumatic and that can resemble a twin flame journey, only it's toxic. Okay. And this would be more of a karmic type of a relationship where it can be really, really highly charged because there's such attraction, but what's being attracted is, again, the shadow, it's the distorted side. And all that dysregulated energy will show up as attraction and aversion. The runner and the chaser, and all of this is, again, seeking to balance itself, and it can become really not good. And you can tell because if you're on a true twin flame journey, the toxicity is not toxic. It's actually there's actually a separation and a love at the core of all of it. And there's a really deep love that is that the individuation is happening for you. Whereas the toxic is actually dragging you down. It's not lifting you up. That's kind of another conversation, but just to say that. So the karmic, you've got the two shadows that are now really, really clicking in together, and it's hot and heavy, and you're burning off you're learning boundaries, you're learning lessons, hopefully. And again, you're balancing out and trying to neutralize all of that distorted shadow energy. And that can very often kick you into then meeting a twin, right? You may have had very strong karmic relationships in the past. So that's kind of what that looks like. But again, that karmic nature can also be showing up. That shadow can show up certainly with soulmate. And that shadow also gets kicked up, obviously, as you know, with the twin. It's just that with the twin, you individuate separately. You cannot be together with that shadow. It literally will continue. You'll try to come together. The energies are trying to balance and harmonize together. But as long as that shadow's there, it's going to create the distortion in the energies and the push and the pull. Okay, until one of them stations up in the 5D, totally neutralized, which we'll talk about in the third video or the last video in the series. The last one I wrote down here are interceptors. Interceptors. I'm just going to call them that. This would be like a non-player character, a soulless being. This is a possible incarnate, or even an incarnate that's chosen to be service to self on the narcissistic side of the scale. So we're talking way down here on the scale of consciousness, very toxic, but they feed on negativity. They feed on shadow, and they are open vessels because they're so disconnected from God source, right? Source consciousness. Universe. To me, it's not universe. There's a source consciousness. There's God here. When they're that disconnected, it doesn't mean that they're not savable. I don't really believe NPCs are not necessarily, but I do believe there's a light. There's nothing where the dark can fully win. Let's just say that, because the light will always win. Okay. Otherwise, we would not exist. That being said, the NPCs are an open vessel for those more nefarious, not so good characters, disembodied characters from the fourth dimension, lower astral realms in particular, but also some even higher, that interfere and are trying to keep twins apart. Another deeper conversation, but just know that some people come in and literally will play on everything, that parts of your shadow, parts of what you want, because they're watching you. They are trying to keep us apart, and they will utilize whatever empty vessel that will play on your fears and your fears and your beliefs in order to keep the twins apart. And this is unfortunate, but it's a true thing that can happen. And so again, the goal here is to awaken to fully embody soul. And the higher you go and deal with the karmic stuff and the shadow and the beliefs that keep us in the type of thinking that will continue to create distortion and keep us in the lower frequencies and in fear. As we deal with more of these things, we are able to rise and open up and unlock these different levels of ourselves and awaken to multidimensionality, and also then invite in the proper highest level of soulmates or twin or whatever it is that that's meant for us in this lifetime. And so you can see that all relationships are valid. Really labeling any of them at the end of the day doesn't matter at all. What matters is that you understand that I have a core resonant frequency. I have a song that is mine. I have much more that I can pick up in my experiences. I'm aware that I have a shadow. I'm going to work through that shadow. I'm aware that I have belief systems that allow me to stay in fear and in lower realms and in lower frequencies where I'm picking up thought forms that are feeding my fears and my old past traumas. So I'm going to work through that. You're going to learn from watching other videos here or working with me or other channels that are teaching the true teachings here, how to work through the emotional body and the mental body and bring them into harmony, that masculine and feminine, living in the now and really coming into a balance by using the logic, but moving your intents, all living from the heart in the now. Okay, with that balance. That's what the journey is about. And again, if you know that your energetics are that powerful and that they require that the harmony is there in order for the peace, the inner union, that Heros Gamos, all of that brings and unlocks the best life, the purpose, the dream, the dream of every dream you have ever had. Suddenly it all comes together in this unity consciousness. And that's the journey like you're on. You're locked in. If you're on this twin flame journey, that spiritual will has a will of its own, and there's no stopping it. On the other channel, I talk about awakening, but not with a spiritual will that's necessarily quite like the twin flame journey is. So knowing what you're working with, again, no worries about the labels. you can come into balance with every interaction that you have, working again through the shadow and also sharing codes and working with other people and being of service and in that highest thy will, as I call it, being aligning with thy will, sixth dimension and above. Really, fifth is where you decide, but sixth dimension and above is where you're bringing in that higher self and you're living through and creating with this vessel from that embodiment and then moving even beyond that. It's just a gorgeous, gorgeous trip. So just understanding a little bit more about the mechanics behind the different types of people that we meet. I'm hoping that you find value in this and that it helps you, again, to look at these relationships outside of the emotionality, outside of the dramas, and all of the stuff that we get caught in trying to figure out by the mind. What are they feeling? And all the stories and our past stories. It's really easy to get lost there. So get the bigger picture here of what's happening so you can stay in your own lane and continue to go up this path on your own and recognize, again, everything else will fall into place and your own energy is going to continue to attract what you need for that naturally and perfectly, because that's the soul contract that you have for yourself in this lifetime. So I'm going to go into the next part. We're going to talk a bit more about what's unlocking for you in terms of the Merkabas and traveling through different dimensions as you are putting together and repiecing together all of this DNA. So exciting. And it's hopefully, again, going to be something interesting, something a little bit new, but also to keep you out of the emotionality of this trip, because it's a trip. All right, thanks for being here. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss those next ones. And like it if you like it, give me a comment, and I will see you in the next video.